Okay. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:39 of the 6th Regional Planning Board. We have a quorum. We will go through just a quick roll call. Mike Naughton,
Mike Naughton, present.
Jane,
Present.
Greg Snedeker,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
Lynn,
Here.
Karen,
Here.
Deb,
Here.
Bloomer, Renee,
Here.
and Raina. She's on mute. She is here.
Yep, she was.
Raina,
Sure.
you're on mute, Raina.
Oh, she's very dark. Oh, there.
Oh, she's coming back to the computer, I think. Yeah, yeah. Okay, she's here. Yeah, and Alan Genevieve's present. So there's our roll call. We do have a quorum. 1, 2, 3. We have 10. The minutes, we there's a lot going on, and I hope you had an opportunity to read my cover letter, because I do it to try to expedite the meeting. And so one of the things I was hoping, but it didn't happen, was having on the minutes, on the meeting, having the minutes that we are, I don't want to use the word delinquent, but that we don't have available yet. And since we're directing people to our website, we really need to get that caught up. And Greg's got a lot going on. We are going to rewrite the grant. We're gonna have a conversation about that. Joanne has contacted us that we need to send in the amendment. So our focus will be on that for a bit. And I'll give you an update on a couple other activities that are kind of exciting that will be happening. So Greg, do you have, if everybody, or if, I think there were 5 outstanding sets. If you just look at them on the website, oh, Pat Scherer just joined us.
I did.
If you look at, if you look at them on the website and you just record it through a faster speed, it's really a matter of just capturing the essence of, you know, the committee discussed such and such, and if there was an action, you cover that. Otherwise, you're just pointing out, you know, the topics and the discussion on it, without getting into, you know, the weeds of the detail of all the talking back and forth. So I'm going to ask that if people would be willing to just take one set and do a speed through it and just capture the essence of it and send it off to Greg, and he can tidy up anything that needs to be, and then we'd get them all on the agenda, and we could go on our next agenda, go through, or maybe the agenda after, because that's not a lot of time. And then we could get those caught up. So Greg, do you have the dates of the meeting that we're missing?
Yes. Hold on.
Maybe he could email them out. I'd be willing to take one, as long as there's no deadline for getting it done, because I don't know how much time I actually have to listen and write.
Well,
But I'll
here,
take
Fair
one.
enough.
hold on. Yeah, I mean, I could send out the email. I mean, what I can also do is, you know, if you give me 2 seconds here, I will.
The first one I think was in October, right?
Well, here, what I can do is,
Can you put them on the screen?
yeah, so, you know, the posted meetings are here. And I think the last set that I wrote was August 17th. So from August 31st on, I may have written the August 31st. I have to go back. If I did that, then it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, and then today's. So that would be 5. So they're all right there. The question is, you know, if we had 5 people that each took one, that would, and I'm willing to take one as well. And what you can do is, if you're looking for the actual, the YouTube channel is just above the posted meetings, and you can find the videos here. This was our last meeting. And what I usually do is,
It is.
As you can see here, there's a settings right here for the wheel. You can set the playback speed to twice the speed. And then you know, because we're all slow talkers and we talk for quite a while. And so.
Mike, you're recording, correct?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You should also tell you that.
Yeah, no, thank you. So this is a meeting of the Sixth Regional Planning Board on November 15, 2022, beginning around 6:36.
Now that may be a little fast, so you can always slow it down a little, you know, maybe try 1.75.
It is a remote meeting and let's see, call the meeting to order 6:36 and roll call attendant.
I think we got the point.
So there you go. I'm showing, no, I know, but Ellen, I need to show people where it is because a lot of people have never used that before. So, you know, just in case you're wondering where it is, it's in the settings wheel here, and you can set the speed to whatever you're comfortable doing. And that way you don't have to, you know, listen to a full hour or whatever this is, like an hour and 15 minutes. It'll take you half the amount of time. So, okay.
I'll do October 18th.
What's that?
I said, I'll do October 18th.
Oh, that's nice of you. Thank you.
Who's talking? Deb Loomer?
Yeah, Boomer.
Okay, so doing.
I'll do
October
November 15th.
18th.
Yes,
Who is
Steve.
talking there?
Steve, I'll do November 15th.
November 15th?
Yes, here.
Here, let me I can put the dates back up again if people are curious.
Yeah, you've got to identify yourself. Steve, did you say November 15th?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
I think I'll take the September 20th because that's a long one.
Okay,
So that's a good 2.5 hours.
okay. So that's 3, we've got 2 more. What's left? This one.
We have an October 5th. And yeah, we got this one, which hopefully won't be too long, but we'll see.
Yeah. Again, we just
Any
need to capture
takers?
the essence of
They don't have to be long. And nobody likes to write minutes, I guess.
I was gonna say, what's my age?
For the record, let me just point
this-
out that Patricia Shira has joined us and Bill has joined us and Deb Pote has joined us.
I will take tonight's meeting. This is Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. I think, is that it?
So just,
October 5th is,
October 5th is is that the only one left?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay,
Okay, I'll take that.
thank you.
that's awesome. So I have Jane with October 5th, Karen is December 6th, Greg is September 20th, Steve is November 15th, and Deb Loomer as October 18th.
Yep.
And I think that's it.
Yep.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. You could do them over the holidays. It makes for a wonderful holiday sort of event. You know, have a little.
Yeah, so maybe when we,
Have some
yeah,
eggnog
so
while
maybe
you're
at the-
doing it.
after the first of the year, we can have that as our target, getting them done. All right, next one, recap of the
Alan, I
meeting we
got
had
a
with the-
question.
Yes, oh, sorry, thank you, Mike.
So before we, I don't mean to raise a sore subject, but what about minutes for the education subcommittee? Just since we're talking about minutes.
Are there meetings outstanding? I mean, minutes.
so.
outstanding?
I think there's agenda that don't have associated minutes. That's the way it looks to me. It's a little hard to tell, but
Why don't I reach out to Bill? He could do those. I'm terrible.
Where'd Bill go? Bill was here. I don't
Was
see
he?
him. I did see him for a minute, and by the way, Christy Solda has also joined us. So I think we've got everybody.
I don't know if there are
All right,
recordings for those meetings.
Well, why don't we
Yeah.
reach out, yeah, to Bill, since he's chairing that committee, and we can find out if there's been any progress.
Weren't some of those just work groups? We changed the name of it
That's true.
to work group so that it was an informal type of meeting. So I remember we made that change specifically for that reason, that they weren't posted. It was just an informal conversation and they were called work groups.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the agenda page on our website,
Might have
Hmm.
been
and like I see
mislabeled.
an agenda for March 4th. I go over the minutes and I don't see minutes for March 4th
Oh,
March
of
think-
2021.
ooh,
Long time
There's
ago.
nothing in 2022, as far as I can tell.
oh my gosh. Hmm.
Well,
Were we alive back then?
There's an agenda for some time, looks like 3, I'm not sure what. 030222, maybe March 2nd.
Yeah, other than the work group, they may not have met a whole bunch during that time because the consultants were doing that. So that's probably a conversation with Bill and Deb to see, you know,
Yeah.
did they,
If
I don't know
someone-
how many agendas you're seeing on there, Mike. But
Well, anybody can
I'm
go look.
thinking-
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just
okay.
saying that since we're talking about cleaning up minutes, I don't know if that's gonna be possible, but I thought now's the time to ask the question, right?
yeah, that's good. And Mike, let me ask you this, because you were heavily involved in the financial aspect. When you were a working group, you just brainstormed and did things, but you didn't produce minutes, correct? Or an agenda. You got together and,
On the
Tackle
working
things.
group for the slideshow, that's correct.
okay, good, okay. All right, moving on to the next item, recap of the meeting. One, just recognize Jane Dutcher for pulling that all together. It was really good participation. So Jane, thank you so much. Really nicely done. And you moderated that well. So they had good questions. They raised, concerns. I think that we have had a lot of information about the benefits, the services and programs to folks that from various consultants and from the feedback. And so it is very important that we dig in this grant to get a better understanding of the financial picture and the implications. So people are interested in that. We're interested in that. So we'll try to help in our focus when we look at the grant that we'll be amending. People comments? Jane, you organized it. How did you think it went?
I thought it went quite well. I was sorry that I had to run around with a mic, but when people started making long statements that weren't getting recorded, I decided that had to be done. So I got my exercise that day. Comments that I've heard since the meeting, that we should just answer questions and not expound upon them with lots more information. That gets confusing. Another comment which I thought was really interesting is that we needed to face the facts and close one of the high schools.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had no answer to that. I just accepted it. I didn't even respond. Other than that, I think all of the comments that I've heard, everybody else has heard also.
All right, I'll do Mike and then I'll do Pat.
Yeah, well, my impression was that it went well too. I'll quickly comment on what Jane just said and say that I'm not sure we need an answer to that comment right now. I'd be curious to see if other people come up with the same idea. I mean, our job is to listen as much as anything. And if a lot of people think that closing one of the high schools, I mean, we did not consider that because
Oh, we did
we thought it-
consider it and we decided that it was politically,
Right, right. Now, all I'm saying is if we hear from a lot of people, that's what we ought to do, then maybe it isn't politically unfeasible. But my main comment is, Alan, you had mentioned in your cover letter that someone had said that this seems like a no-brainer. And I heard that a couple of times at the meeting. I was thinking later that it really isn't. My take is that this is not a no-brainer. And if
Right.
people came away from that meeting thinking that this is a no-brainer, then either they weren't really paying attention or we didn't do a good job. And I'm not I don't know, I'm just saying that I don't think that's the way to look at this. So,
Mhm.
I would agree, Mike. I thought it was geared more toward the educational aspect of it and benefiting kids, that the feeling was that, to quote someone, that was a no-brainer. And I think all our researchers pointed through that over the last couple of years. But that's weighted out by, so that's only, that comment I thought was only toward the educational part. There's a lot of
Yeah,
work
that's
to
not-
do
that's
on
not
the
the way I heard
financial
it.
side. Okay.
you seem to be making a general
me
statement. I
just-
don't know. Other people.
Yeah,
can-
let me
who were
just
there
see. Let
can
me ask
chime in.
Steve. Yeah, Steve was sitting almost close, next to that gentleman. Steve, what was your impression?
Well, I wasn't sitting next to him. He was in the front row there over on the side, but he kind of came up with that when we were talking about the educational piece. And then the questions came up afterwards about the financial piece. And I'm not sure he was still of the mind of saying it's a no-brainer. I don't know who the gentleman is. I think he's from Bernardston. He was either Bernardston or, oh no, Northfield. That's where he was from. And so I think he thought educationally was no-brainer. I don't know what he thought in terms of the financial aspect, from it. But he was the only person that I thought said that at the time.
Pat?
Okay, two things. Number one, David's trying to get in and he can't. Can somebody send him the invitation that was sort of hard to find? And I don't have his email. I've been trying to get it to him, but I don't have that. Could somebody call him or somehow get that to him? Number one. Number two,
I'll email him.
okay, that would be great. I talked to our town clerk yesterday, and he was very impressed with the program that happened at the senior center in Bernardston. Thought it was very well done. Got a lot of information from his side. He thought it was great. So just passing that on. So thank you, Jane.
Greg?
Yeah, I didn't get that. There was only one person that said it was a no-brainer. And the way I felt in terms of the rest of the group was that most of the people in the room felt like something needed to be done. I didn't really hear no-brainer from anyone else. I heard it from that one guy in the front row. And I do think he was really commenting on the educational piece because we had been talking about that. As far as the closure of a high school, or the way I feel about that is, if the two districts combine, and they start to see enrollment increase, then that becomes a conversation of, we have two buildings. It seems to be working out. If they continue to see declines, then at least they're combined and have some control over, if and when they want to decide to close a building, and that you have a larger district to support even the one building that would be of the 6 towns. So I don't see it as, you have to go ahead with closing a building now when we have no idea what's going to happen if they do combine. in terms of would it attract more students? Possibly. We don't know. So, you know, at least it puts it under the control of a combined district, as opposed to being forced to close in one district and then tuitioning in, which, you know, that could be a real mixed bag. There's no guarantee they're going to be like all tuitioning over to Gil Montague.
Okay, I'll do Deb Loomer and then over to Jane. I think your hand's up.
Yep, mine too.
So.
Oh, and Karen.
This was, I watched it on the YouTube channel. And this is just a procedural thought. I don't know who the woman was because I didn't catch the beginning of all of her questions and so forth. But there was a gentleman at one point that said, okay, haven't you spoken enough? I want to have a comment. So procedurally, should there be a time, and you have a 3-minute time limit to your comments and questions, and then you can move on, because as I kind of watch, because I'm watching all of your faces as the woman is going on, and it's just very interesting. And so procedurally, at whatever point you do this, I think just telling people, we want to answer all your questions, but we want to answer all your questions. So here's your time limit. You got 3 minutes or whatever you decide, and say what you got to say, and then move on to the next person. So I was just once again, an outsider just watching it on YouTube. That struck me as just something that was laborious, that people in the audience were all thinking what that gentleman said.
Right.
Yeah, and to Jane's point, and answer the question like very succinctly. What's your question? Here's the answer. Next one. Jane, you're next, and then Karen.
Well, I was going to say that I agreed with Greg that if one building is to close, I think that should happen after the merger, and that school district should decide that we really don't need 2 buildings. I don't think that we should do that. But I did think that someone commenting that was a sensible thing to do was very interesting. As far as the gal who went on and on and on, she actually is the chairman of the Northfield Select Board. And I saw that she had accumulated her questions as the evening went on, and she had a list that she was going to go through. So maybe that's something that we do need to think about procedurally. You're only allowed 1 question. Please don't justify the question, just ask it, which I tried to tell her to do. That wasn't successful. Anyway, that's it. Karen's turn.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was B. Jacques.
Yeah.
Of the Northfield Select Board. Back to buildings. It's always been an issue at Pioneer. I don't know about Turner's Falls, but parents, especially of middle school students, want to see separate facilities. They are very nervous about their 6th or 7th graders being around seniors and juniors and so forth. And some of that is just inevitable if you share a building. So I think there is also that, which will be in people's minds as well. We would finally have a dedicated middle school, which we haven't at Pioneer, because you can't. You have to use the cafeteria, you have to use the gym, you have to use the music room, you have to use the library. And now with the population declining, you use some teachers in both areas, and that's not ideal.
Renee?
Yeah, hi there. So just as we're reflecting on the evening, I just wanted to share a wondering that I had after I got home. And I know there was a lot of questions from the participants about how things will work out with Warwick. I know that currently we are a 6-town region, but I left wondering, will Warwick become, as Irving is, and this will really be a 5-town
Mhm.
agreement or whatever, I continue to feel that this isn't big enough. That, and I think it was commented on that evening as well, like this. But so again, just naming what it is we're doing. Nothing is done yet. We are currently still a 6-town regional committee, I understand, but I was left reflecting because of the timelines that are set up based on the work we have to do. By the time we're actually getting to this work, aren't we really going to be then a 5-town?
Yes, we will be.
Yeah.
Thank you, Renee. Mike, and then we can move on to the next agenda item. Mike? Your hands up,
Yeah,
yes?
just a comment on B. Jackson and her questions. She did seem to have accumulated a list of questions, and I think we should make sure. I mean, I appreciate people saying, well, you know, we want to keep things moving, and not everyone wants to hear her questions, but that doesn't mean that. I mean, I think we want to, as the STRPB, I think we need to be sure that everyone who has questions gets a chance to express those questions. And, you know, agreed, sometimes things take longer than maybe they might if people were being more efficient. I know myself, sometimes I'm really prepared to talk efficiently and sometimes I'm not. And sometimes I've thought things through and sometimes I haven't. So I think we need to be prepared for that. Which is one reason I think that allowing people to send us questions after these presentations, and sort of
Yeah.
encouraging that and making that easy to
Oh,
do,
that's a good idea.
which I think we've done, is good. You know, I will comment that the gentleman who spoke up and said, gee, this is taking long, other people have questions, he went on and on too.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's, and there, I think there's a tension. You don't want people to go on and on. On the other hand, sometimes it takes people a while to get everything that's on their mind out. And I don't think we want to shut people up who have things that need to be expressed. So I think it's a balancing act.
Yeah, Greg put it out there that she did follow up the next day with a list of questions to get answers to. I think we just need to be mindful of, this is the first rollout. You know, we decided that we would go to select boards and the town officials because they're leaders in the community, and that there will be follow-up with them, probably again, maybe at a more intimate level where we're going into their respective board meetings and answering questions. Jane, is your hand? So I see Jane, Christie.
Well, my
and-
hand is up because I contacted her the next morning and said, I know you didn't get all your questions answered. Please tell me what they are so I can, you know, pass them on or get answers for you. And she said, I talked to Greg after the meeting and got most of them answered. So I just responded, well, you know, if you have more, come let us know.
Thank you.
And speaking
Christie?
of that, if we asked everybody to submit their questions, has anybody looked at the website to see if there were any? I haven't. You have, Greg? Good. I knew you. You do everything.
Christie?
So I was wondering, I thought this was a good question that somebody had. Financially, if we do come together, the teacher salary, you know, looking at the financials, when is that coming up that we're gonna like start thinking about that and try to put that together? Because I think that's very important information for people to know. And thinking and expanding from that, it also made me wonder, Pioneer's finally starting to align elementary schools and curriculum. And would we want to start thinking about that too? Because I know it takes a while and we want to make sure if we have all these elementary schools moving up to one middle school that some things are aligning. So these are just some of my wonderings.
Yeah, no, they're they're good. And I forget, the first point you made was, because there was an answer to that.
Salaries.
Salary schedule.
Oh, yeah. So yes, in order to get a better idea of what the assessment will be in the financial part, we're going to be asking for not just sporadic, moving people around, but actually come up with a salary schedule where everyone is held harmless, to have it at least some kind of a ballpark of where that starting position would be. So we didn't get that last time. We got, well, if this person's here and this person's there. So we would get a complete new salary schedule, because in order to know the assessments, we have to really sort of pretend that it is one district, and here's what a budget would look like. And then here's what we anticipate we'd get from revenue and so forth. So that will be work coming up. And so Mike, I want to move on to Mike, because we gotta link the agenda here. I want to start moving along. Mike.
Yeah, I understand you want to move along, but I want to clarify, are we collecting everyone's questions? I mean, I'm hearing that, we had questions after the meeting and Greg answered them. I don't know what those questions were, and I don't know what the answers were. So my impression going into this was that there was going to be a master list of all the questions that were asked, whether we thought they've been answered or not. We would come up with answers that would be run by the group and somehow put them out so that anyone else who had those questions could see what the answers that the group, agrees upon are.
Alan?
So I just wanted to confirm if that's still what we're doing, or if we're just sort of dealing with people as we encounter them and figuring that if one person's happy, then we're just moving on.
Alan, I think at some point,
Yes.
we've got to trust the people who are answering the questions. I mean, of the two people, Alan and Greg know the most of what's going on. And I feel very comfortable if someone asks a question to Greg and Greg gives an answer. I don't think we could be spending hours upon hours reviewing every question and every answer. And do we all agree on it? I think at some point you put your trust in your leaders and you believe in them and they do it. Otherwise it could be bogged down in just question after question. Just my thought.
I mean,
Well, but I suppose other people have the same question. How do they find out what the answer was?
yeah, the questions afterwards were not really questions about, it was more general about chapter 70. She was asking if we could give some kind of PowerPoint, which Alan answered by saying there was a video that was shown to the school committee of PVRSD a couple of months back that was very good, that was given by someone from DESE, I believe, and that
No.
we were gonna, we pointed her in that direction, but her suggestion was, well, is there something that you could include in your presentation that gave some of the fundamentals of chapter 70? And I didn't really answer because it's how much information do we want to give in terms of, it having to explain hold harmless again, having to explain, the workings of chapter 70. I mean, our presentation would just get much longer. So, I mean, we could, but that was her basic question.
I think she's too new. Anybody who's been on one of these boards very long already understands all of this. And I think she was asking a question because she hasn't been involved that long.
Well, and I think you got a point, Jane, because I think she's asking as a town leader. She's like, well, the public would want to know. And I'm like, well, the public, is only going to show that much interest in chapter 70. They're going to rely on their town leaders for that kind of information, and are hoping that their town leaders understand that. I find that parents only have so much bandwidth. What they really want to know is, is it going to cost more or less or roughly the same? And whether or not it's going to be a significant, have significant benefits for their children coming up, through the pipeline. So, I think that's what they're really interested in, not the inner workings of Chapter 70. I think she is, because she's a town
Right.
leader.
Okay,
Can
I'm
I
going to,
suggest that we move on?
Yeah.
yes, thank you. Those are all good points. And when we get a question of substance that we know is really, particular to our work, I agree, capture it and we pass it on so that, we address it. PowerPoint revision, Mike, the slide 18 data, is that something that you've worked on, you could put up so we could see how you made that more readable and understandable, or is that in progress? And
Well,
after
I
a
did
few
send
more
out an
weeks-
email, Alan. Did people get the email that I sent out?
I didn't, if I did, I didn't see it yet.
If you give me a second here, I can put it up. I've already inserted it into the video, and I've already redone the audio so that that Deb's not saying FY22 anymore. So she's just saying that this slide shows the impacts on assessments, and to leave it at that, because it says FY23 in your slide, so people can put it 2 and 2 together at that point. So the video is done with the new slide, and the audio has been edited. So if you give me a second, I can pull up your slide for you, Mike.
That would be great.
Yep.
Mike, were you able to get a hold of David?
I sent him an email.
Okay, good. I didn't see him on there, so that's why I was wondering. Thanks.
Yeah, I see Michelle was able to join us. So I don't know if she just came on, but Michelle has joined our meeting as well.
Okay, so here is the slide. Everybody see that okay? So Mike, why don't you go ahead and explain what the changes you made? Oh,
Well,
sorry.
I put in the FY23 data.
Yeah.
And the link to the correct spreadsheet at the bottom. The earlier slide had the same title, FY23 data, but the data that it showed was actually for FY22.
Yep.
So, so just, just a comment to Deb's earlier point. I think, to some extent, we all need to be checking each other here. I mean, I don't distrust anybody on this board, but clearly that slide was wrong. Somehow it got through the process and was showed twice before I picked up on it, and no one else mentioned it before then. So, I don't, to me, that's not a success. That's something we should say, gee, that shouldn't happen again. And taking the attitude of, oh, well, I trust so-and-so, so I don't even need to know what they said or what they did or look at what this or that.
I have a question.
I just think that's dangerous.
I have a question. Your orange bar is labeled 10/1/21. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
The October 1st, 2021 counts.
Right, because we're in the fiscal year 23, so that would make sense.
So does the gray bar actually be 10/1 average or 10/1/2022?
It means a rolling 5-year average.
Yeah, and I think Mike was taking you didn't update it to the 10/1/22 data. You're just going off of the 21 data.
I believe it's 21 and going back for
Yes.
5 years.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, you can see what I did by looking at the spreadsheet.
yeah, I once again, I'll be that unknowledgeable public. And if I don't know if you can fit it in there, or that says it's a 5-year average? Because once again, I'm looking and saying average what?
Is that in the footnote that we can't see here?
That's what I was looking for.
It might, I wonder
I'm wondering,
if it's in the,
I'm wondering if there's a next. I'm wondering if we have a slide that precedes this, that has the bullet points that basically says, the next slide is going to show. And then it
I
is a
don't think we
brief,
do.
like, explanation of it, and then you show it. So they have a little bit of a foundation to go on before they look at it.
Yeah, need that.
I don't think we have that slide, if that's what you're asking.
No, we don't have a slide. I'm saying we put a slide that precedes it, that has sort of an introduction to, what the next slide is going to be showing, and sort of just creates a little bit of a foundation, of a
Well, I mean,
mindset. So when it comes up,
I guess
Good to
I hear what you're saying, but I mean, I'll push back a little bit and say, this is a slide in a PowerPoint presentation. If someone is really interested in what the data is telling them, wouldn't it be better for them to look at the spreadsheet? And if they can look at the spreadsheet, they can see exactly what all those bars, where they all come from. I mean, I think that trying to explain everything, I mean, I don't personally think that PowerPoint is a great tool for conveying data of any complexity. You kind of have to simplify it as much as possible to fit it on, a slide. And that has its uses. But, there's a lot of questions that just don't get answered. And rather than try to answer them on the slide, would it make more sense to say, if you're interested in the data, and we hope you are, go to the source and look at it, and you can see it, a lot more than we could ever hope to put on that slide.
I think Mike has a point, but I think Deb also has a point that it should say 5-year average.
Average.
Um,
For me,
'cause you
it's just
really
three
don't know
more
what your
letters.
average, what we know what it is. It's hard to look at these things and pretend you don't know all the background.
Right. And that's
And
why, the reason why I said it was 5YR, was a small enough addition, not an explanation, that for me gave the answer. When you say to the public, well, you have to go and find it if you're interested, I'm looking at, for the addition of 3 letters, for me, just looking at it, it was an aha moment. Oh, now I get it. And that's what I think you want them to do, is now I get it. I don't have to ask the question, raise my hand. The presentation moves on. Great.
So you want me to change the slide?
If you could put 5YR in front of that average, I think it would answer. I think it would be, if it's a small enough addition and it fits, I think it would be accurate for the people to understand it better. Yeah.
Well, that can certainly be done. I assume you want it done on the other average as well.
I don't know the other slides, to be honest with you, Mike. I'm just looking
I
at.
don't think, no, I mean, on that slide.
That sounds like a good way to ameliorate that issue. And I agree with you, Deb. When you direct people, if you're interested, I think we should say it. But if someone's looking for, a quick review of a synopsis of what the data is, I think the slide does accomplish that.
The other one is the foundation average. I don't know. There's not a lot of room to put 5YR there. Should I get rid of the word average and replace it with 5YR?
5YR AYG is the abbreviation for average.
AVG.
AVG. Yep, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, we all set on the slide 8, on that slide?
I think we should put a new
Thank you.
date on the first slide too.
Okay.
So that if people wonder whether they have the latest version.
I missed what you said.
We should put a new date on the first slide in the presentation.
Oh,
Probably change October to
Okay.
December.
All right.
okay. And so let's move on to slide 24. Deb, you had pointed out that it seemed to be a little bit of a, I think you said Debbie Downer, but a little bit of a more of a pessimistic note to just say, and it will not happen. I agree with that on a, you can say the same thing in a positive way, just saying, it requires all the towns to support this in order for it to move forward. So I brought that to Greg's attention. Greg, is that a big thing to change in a voiceover or just delete
I already
those?
took it out. It's gone. There's no reason for it. It's just, it ends on a negative note, and I think you're right. You just take off the last little bit. It's, just basically it says, she says at the end now, for this to happen, we will bring it to a town, and all 6 towns will vote on it.
Yeah, okay, that's good. All right, moving on. So I think Mike's point though of version 2 or something like that, so that we're reminded of, there are a few revisions of this. So the next one is the I want to be, there seemed to be concern.
Can I comment, instead of changing the
Yes, go ahead.
date, make a place on that slide for updated December 22. Because there's gonna be more updates. So let's have a line that says updated and add all the times we update it. Sorry, I didn't mean to pull this up.
Okay.
Where do you want that line, Jane?
Well, just to have a history of the dates that we made modifications to the slideshow.
So maybe put that on the first slide.
Yeah, like a footnote, updated 12/20/22.
Right. So you sort of have a history. If we do more, we'll just add to that list.
Yeah, when we meet in January, somebody else has something else we should fix. Like me.
Okay. No, I like that idea. I like that idea.
Okay.
Greg, you want to do that or you
going
want me to
to-
do that?
I already did it.
Nice.
Greg, thank you.
I'll send you the new slide.
I just did it. It's December 6th now, updated.
Okay, item 6. The PBRC superintendent's imagining our future. A couple of comments were made after the meeting about, the involvement of the Pioneer superintendent. And some people brought up, it might be confusing that if there's some forums and activity going on specific to Pioneer, and then we have our forums being rolled out, that might confuse the public. I know, Mike, you had sent me an email and brought that to my, as a concern as well, and asked for it to be on the agenda. I want to just point something out because Raina joined us a little bit later. So Raina, just so that you know, before you joined us, I did explain that you have a lot going on in your life, plus a new job, and that you're tied into the Pioneer School Committee. You didn't see the communication that Jane sent out regarding inviting school committee members to this forum coming up. So it was just an honest oversight, and that obviously if you had seen it, you would have sent out that invitation. So I brought that up ahead of time. And so, Mike, I don't know if you want to expand on that, because you brought up, you were wondering how the school committee felt about that.
Well, yeah, I can expand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I basically, I read the article in the Recorder, about this year of learning, right? And I thought, well, it sounds a lot. The plan going forward is to have public meetings to talk about the future of Pioneer, is my understanding from that article. And I thought, well, that's what the STRPB is doing. And yet there's no mention of the STRPB. And if I were a member of the public in the Pioneer District, number one, would I want to be going to two separate sets of meetings to talk about the future of Pioneer? And number two, there was that question at the meeting in Berniston of, how do the administrations feel? And, basically my impression is that Brian Beck is interested in what we're doing, the superintendent at Gilmontague, but that Jonathan Skagel was somewhat interested before he left from Pioneer, but we haven't heard from Superintendent Kinsella. As she did, there was that quote in the paper that Greg responded to. And it just seems like if we want this to succeed, we ought to be working more together with her in particular, because it seems like she's on a different page from us and isn't, for whatever reason, isn't paying a whole lot of attention to what we're doing. And I think that's not a good thing moving forward. But I was curious I live in Montague. I don't know much about the inner workings of the Pioneer District. And so I thought, well, if we talked about it at a meeting, we got a bunch of people from Pioneer here, maybe they'll have some thoughts to offer.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear in that, there's a couple of pathways because we don't know what's going to happen. And so there's a plan A and a plan B, and there may be a plan C. Certainly, the superintendent Kinsella needs to be looking at what's in the best interest, of the kids in opportunities in the present, and as well as we're looking out. But I think there may be a misunderstanding that first of all, our charge was created by the towns coming together and asking us to do this work on their behalf. And so I think it's important, if I haven't communicated that maybe she doesn't understand that when if she's engaged in what we're doing and offers suggestions and participates, then that she's doing it on behalf of all of the towns, and which is what she should be doing. On the other side, she also should be looking and getting feedback about what's happening in the district now and what people are looking for. I think she may be envisioning that this is 8 or 9 or 7 or 8, 9 years down the road, and I don't see it that way. I see it's 2, possibly 3 years down the road, but there's nothing wrong with having a stronger partnership with the superintendent, because information that she gets can strengthen our work, and information that we get can strengthen hers. And if it's not voted by the towns, they're looking at an alternative. And if it is, then we take all the good ideas and information that she was able to get and use that as part of our work. So I would like to see just a stronger partnership. I do agree with you, Mike, that two forums and things going on simultaneous could be problematic. In that light, I do want to point out that I've made contact with one of the administrators there, and I've also talked to Cooper Bullock, who's he's an amazing individual, who's the class president of the senior class, and had a conversation with him and asked him, did he think it was feasible and a good idea to meet with the different class advisors, school councils of each of the schools prior to Christmas to just give them an idea of what our work was, and then bring the Pioneer over to Gil Montague, and their representative and councils talk about this together and offer suggestions and let us know, what concerns they have and what they think the possibilities could be. And then we reverse that and bring them back to Pioneer, whichever order is going to happen. And so going down that path, I was able to get a quote from Kathy Hodgkin, Hawkins.
Harrison.
Thank you. Thank you,
Harrison?
Karen.
Yes.
Yeah, so she reached out to just get a quote, because I want to amend the grant, which we have to anyways, to make sure I include money in there for transportation so that we can get the student bodies together and have a conversation. So I'm trying to put that in play now, and wanted to bring that up as part of, that could be part of the working together. And certainly at the student level, and have more happen at the administrative level as well.
Alan?
Mike had asked, how does the school committee feel about this at Pioneer? How might you feel about, is this going to be confusing? So I can go to Karen, Deb, and Raina if you have any comments. Karen, you're first, I guess, and then Deb,
Yeah.
and then
There's been some talk in the past of having a regular report from someone on the STRPB as a part of our school committee meetings. And I'm wondering why that hasn't happened. Have you reached out to get that on the agenda? Raina, has anybody brought it to you that the school committee should be updated? Certainly. And except for the people who are on this committee, they don't really have a way to be updated, except what they read in the newspaper, if they read the newspaper.
Mhm.
Okay, I really think we need to do that, and somebody needs to approach Raina and or Patricia to get that on the agenda regularly.
It should be one of your committee reports. You have.
yeah, and Rainer and I did talk about that. Yeah, Rainer and I did talk about that. It's on the agenda coming up. And I'm hoping it will be a standing item on upcoming agendas, because I think the next step would be that we show the PowerPoint to the school committee that we did to the towns. We said we'd roll out to the towns first. I think there ought to be time set aside for the school committee as well. But
Yeah.
Rainer and I did have that conversation about having it on the agenda.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but I remember that conversation happening a while ago as well. And so we certainly do have to do it now.
Yeah,
I
no,
agree.
it just the competing priorities. So the agendas have been very packed, and you know how long our meetings are. So there's been a lot of
I
juggling.
do. I
But
do.
yeah, should be we can put it on as a standing item.
Okay.
Alan,
Deb,
you spoke to the new principal up at Pioneer. His name was John.
Carter.
Carter,
Now, John
and I
was
did
just a
reach,
math
yeah.
teacher at
Yes.
Peters Falls High School.
That's right. That's right.
So that would be a wonderful opportunity for him, who knows both group of people,
Mhm.
both groups of students, to be able to pull them together. I mean, that's an opportunity that, like you said, should definitely happen. And I would be willing to help out in any way to, whatever, with that group, because that is like you said, if the senior class president at Pioneer seems like an activist and wants to see possibilities and so forth. Like I said, I think John Carter is in a prime place to help that happen.
Yes, I did reach out to him, Deb. He's out of the office. He was out of the office this week. And he might be out for a couple days next week. And I sent him an email, and he's the one that suggested that I get in touch with Kathy. So he's aware of this, because that was the protocol. And and then there's an Emily Miller, I think, that might be the advisor to the senior class. So I'm trying to get in touch with the appropriate people to, move this along. Christie?
I was just curious, has anybody talked to Ms. Kinsella directly about what we've been doing? I'm just curious if she really has any information.
Karen, you can answer. I have certainly made some efforts to do that. I think she's been dealing with many things, and I think that I think she could become more engaged than she has been, but she's had a lot on her plate when she first came in. And I think her initial position was, I need to really focus on, doing the right things for Pioneer and make that my focus right now. And it might have come out of that's been where her energies have been lying at the moment, instead of, I'm not interested in your work. It may have been competing tasks that she's had to do. But I
Alan,
will, I hope to have another conversation with her.
Alan, this is Michelle. Can I make a comment?
Yeah, please. Hey,
Um,
Michelle.
We had our community budget subcommittee the day after the presentation, or 2 days after. And from the, there were select board and FinCom representatives, and I will tell you that all of them had attended the Monday meeting at the Bernardston Senior Center, and it was definitely on their minds.
Hmm.
So I think more will be coming from the community, but we still have to go through our budget process. And I think there's going to, I don't want to speak for anyone, but let me just say, it was on everyone's mind, and I'll leave it at that. So it didn't go unnoticed.
Right.
Can I add?
So are you saying,
I would like to add that our consultant did interview her, and so she does know something about it, and she reads the newspaper, so she knows what's been there. So it's not like she doesn't know something is happening here. And I think it would be a good move to get her more involved one way or another.
Mhm.
Alan, can I
Jane,
add
do you have a
to,
comment?
I want to add to Michelle's comment. One of the school committee members who is on the budget committee said she knew nothing about this. Nobody had told her anything about it. And what right did we, I'm interpreting now, but she made it sound like she thought we invented ourselves. Of course, I couldn't keep quiet. So I asked to be recognized, and I gave everybody the history. This committee was formed, this board was formed by votes of annual town meetings of all 6 towns, and that's required by law. Then I told her that the law also required that every town had 3 members, one of which had to be from the school committee. And I'm on this committee because nobody from Bernardston who is on the school committee would join this group. So I sought a waiver from the state to allow Bernardston to appoint somebody else. And when we got the waiver, I volunteered to be that person. I did not mention that at the budget committee meeting, but I'm mentioning it for you. Because I did say, every town has a school committee person on this committee.
Jane, did you say that she said that she didn't know anything about it? Did I hear that right?
Michelle
Thank you.
maybe can quote her better, but she indicated that she didn't know anything about this. She'd never heard about it. She didn't know what was going on.
Jane, I'm a little confused because I send her invitations to every single meeting.
No, I'm not talking, I said one of the members, one of the school committee members at that budget meeting was the one who made these statements, not
Oh,
Oh.
Miss
Oh, okay.
Kinsella.
I thought you meant Kinsella.
No. I just didn't want to.
I did too.
Okay, all right, that clears things up. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I thought I heard it differently. Thank you. Michelle, is your hand still up or did you want to make another comment? It's down. So I
No,
guess,
I'm all set. Okay.
okay. So I guess, Mike, are you satisfied? You asked for that to be on here. I guess, I will have a conversation. I will try to have a conversation with the superintendent and see. I think she could contribute if she does that, and hopefully the information she's gathering, we can be in partner and that can be shared with us. Raina?
So I just wanted to ask what your goal is for having Superintendent Kinsella more involved in the process and in our meetings, or what you're looking for, or what you're seeing is lacking with the current situation.
Well, I would, and I'm just gonna talk real quick, just to cover a couple points. I would, for example, if we end up doing a survey of students, it would be a very short thing to be able to put 10 minutes of class time aside for teachers to give the survey, let the kids fill it out and collect it back. We'd get a lot more information, from that way. So that would be helpful to initiate, do that. If we have letters to, for example, we're going to want to go now into the schools to talk to the parents and the PTAs and so forth. If we send out a communication to the parents, that she makes sure that it gets forwarded on to the principals and to the parents, so that they're aware of a meeting that we'll be presenting and trying to hear feedback from the public. I'm sure she has some ideas that she could share of what how this could benefit, and we haven't heard those. We've heard some from the the other superintendent, and so I'd like to hear more ideas from her of what she's thinking about, what the possibilities could be, rather than, well, I haven't heard what they couldn't be, but I've heard what they might be for Pioneer and some of the efforts that they could make to make that a more invigorating education for kids. But it would be good to hear how that could be if there was a larger population. And I didn't know what Deb had shared about the principal, and I think he will be a tremendous resource. So we're all on the same page in that we want the best education for our kids in the immediate and in the future. And what that is, we don't know yet. But we've been commissioned to look at this aspect, and that's what we're doing. And it should involve the administrations and the superintendents and so forth in both districts to look at this in an unbiased way and share information. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be a little more candid on this one, which is I don't know where Kinsella sits in terms of our work. She has never been to one of our meetings. She has never really given an opinion in terms of our work, at least not directly to us. What I read in the newspaper when she commented on regionalization was strictly from the point of view of the financials, which, as we know, is not is only one part of it, which made me reply to her article to say that it's not just about financials, but it's about the benefits of the education side. And I don't know where I have to be honest, I don't know where she sits in respect to what we do here. And I would like that to be on record. I would like her to be in a public meeting and to voice her opinion. I think the towns of her district need to know.
She owes it to us.
Yeah, I mean, the towns formed this board, and to have a a superintendent that has really given no public opinion in terms of our work, that we're charged with doing this for the towns, just is a lack of, one, it's a lack of information, and it doesn't give any indication as to what her opinions are on it. I
Well,
think,
it's up to the school committee to move her in that direction, and she said as much at a recent meeting.
well, it's not though, because the towns ultimately they have just as much power to vote down the budgets and vote down what's going on. So it's not just about a school committee.
Well, I'm just telling you, she said out loud at a meeting I heard that if the school committee would take such a vote, then she would be leaning into this. And so I would say that's a way to get it done. And it's also
enough.
important to understand that we're here from the Pioneer side, not because the school committee voted to do this. In our case, it was town meetings and select boards across the board, not the school committee.
But the school committee did actually support it.
They
That was
did.
that was
They
2 years ago. They did. They voted to support our work.
They voted to
Yeah, they voted
have
to
the
close Warwick, too.
administration.
Congratulations.
They voted to have the administration be involved with working with the consultants and working with us on the work we were doing. And that passed by one vote. But we have a new committee. And so there was direction. She may not be aware of that. I mean, in defense of her at the moment, she might not be aware that there was an actual vote of the committee that the administration should be, working with us. So I'll try to have a conversation with her about that. But when she's working for the school committee, she's also working on behalf of the 4 towns in the Pioneer District. And she should know that. Otherwise, it's not helpful. I'll just leave it at that. Because it may speak in not a good light on what the town's wishes are in our research.
Well, and it's also
So
it's just a basic level of respect. I mean, with this committee, I mean, I'll be honest, we've been at this for many years, and there's a lot of hard work that has gone in on behalf of the towns. And that needs to be respected, and it needs to be respected by the superintendents. And I'm not saying she doesn't, I just don't know. I don't know where she sits in respect to our work, because she's never been in one of our meetings and has publicly expressed what, her opinions as to what we're doing. So I'm gonna put it out there. I'm not a part of the PVRSD district. So, I'm just speaking from the perspective of my participation in this board and the tremendous amount of work you've all put into this.
Alan, I think what's critical at this point, and someone else had said it, is to do that slide presentation for the school committees. Because if you have school committees, as you said, there's a new school committee up in the PVRSD, some of them might not know what's been going on because they're new. So getting that presentation, what David just said, that Casella said was, well, if the school committee directs me in that direction, then, maybe I will. So I guess it starts with the school committees having a full understanding. Once again, there might be new people on it who, I don't know the makeup of the Pioneer School Committee one, but just a thought of moving in that direction quicker than.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. And Karen's point about, having a regular update is a real important one. And it's one that we talked about, but there wasn't as much follow through as there should be. 2 meetings ago, I did say that we'd be rolling out the forums. We're putting together a presentation. Karen was so I laid the groundwork that this would be happening. But then the last 2 meetings, I didn't say anything. So that's on me. Michelle, Mike, and let's move on. Mike and Michelle, and then let's move on. Mike, you're next.
Okay, Well, Alan, you asked me if I was satisfied, and I think this has been a very interesting discussion. I agree with Greg. I think it would be good to hear more directly from Superintendent Kinsella. I understand that there's a lot on her plate, and I understand Rena's point that there's a lot on the school committee's plate. But what we're talking about is a pretty big change. And I'm a little surprised that a change that big hasn't received more attention. Let me just put it that way. Bill has told us that a regular agenda item on the Gilmonte Committee is to get an update from him on what we're doing. Doesn't seem that hard to me to have the same thing happen at Pioneer, and the fact that it hasn't happened and that nobody has really seen the usefulness of having that happen, I find just a little surprising as an outsider. And hearing that the superintendent is now saying that if the school committee directs her to work with us, then she will do that. It occurs to me that I believe those are the exact words that we heard from Jonathan Skagel when he was superintendent. And I think I remember Alan commenting that as a superintendent, there are plenty of things he could have done without being specifically directed by the school committee, which I find believable. Never having been a superintendent, it still seems to me the superintendents do a great deal without needing specific direction. So I'll get back to my original point, which is something this big. I just find it surprising that it isn't more on people's radar screens, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. We'll see what we can do to engage more dialogue. And I want to do it in a productive manner. Michelle?
Well, I'll just add to that. There are 5 of us on this committee from the PVRSD school committee. And I think it's upon all of us to have an honest and powerful conversation, and not just you, Alan. I think most of us have been here. I haven't been here the full, 3 years have you been working on this? I haven't been here the full 3 years. But comments have been made at our school committee meetings, and I'm not sure if it was the full meeting. Well, half of the school committee is on the STRPB. And so I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. And I think the 5 of us owe it to the rest of the school committee members, and especially the new ones that we're bringing on, to explain this. And let, I really do think Karen's point is, right on, that we have to have updates. We have to talk about it. Because there is something going on. And I think when we talk about the future and programs and the budget for the future, I think people are getting confused about what are we doing. And so we really have to have these conversations. And, maybe, I hate to say it, but maybe we should have half a meeting dedicated to this if we possibly can.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, and thank
I
you
would
for
just
the
add,
couple of
I
members.
would just add, Alan, that, those of us who are in the Gilmonte district, I mean, I think about the amount of time I put into this, and I feel like I'm putting in way more time for PVRSD than I am GMRSD, in the sense that their financial situation is much more dire than Gilmonte. And so I'm not doing this for any other reason than I want to see this area thrive in terms of its education and the students. And it does, to not hear from a superintendent when we're putting this much work into something that is to inform the towns in regard to their children's education, seems like it just seems very much disrespectful. I will say that because I put in a ton of time.
I feel the same way, and I'm not from Montague.
And
All right,
I
thank you.
thank you for that, Greg. You do put in a lot of time.
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you. This was a real helpful discussion. And I'm sure, Rainer, I hope it was helpful to you as well as you are sort of putting together, your thinking about this and how to frame it and how we might be able to go forward as a partnership. So thank you for participating this and being on this board. Let's move to the efficiency and regionalization grant. That's an 18-month grant. So finally, we don't have this, we get it and we have like 5 months or 4 months to, try to do as much as possible. I will confess that things have gotten so busy that I realized that a final report wasn't submitted to the state. So the last few days have been devoted toward getting that information to Joanne so she can close the books on our extension grant and the one that recently happened with Mary Broderick. And now we'll be focusing on amending the grant. So you had a copy of the grant so you could see the big picture of what we were just trying to put out there. It was pared down to 125. A call was made to say, can we live with that? And obviously the answer is yes, we can live with that. We'll do the best that we can. And so Greg and I had a conversation about, all right, let's share with you what you have, what we put in there, and then what we sort of unilaterally just made some revisions to get it down to the 125. But since then, I've had some other thoughts, one of them being getting the student bodies together. And that doesn't cost a lot to do that. It's just transportation. So I plan on modifying and using some of that money for that to happen, because it's only like at $400 each way for a bus and waiting time and so forth. We can do it during Pioneers Pathways program. I was informed, which they have on Wednesday and Thursday. So there's a way to do that would work out nicely. So that will be one thing. Greg, do you want to put up the slide that shows the red lines of here's what we have and here's sort of how we modified it, and then what replacements or what ideas people may have, because we were kind of under the gun to get something down on paper and get it in. And now we have the benefit of amending. And I think that gives us more flexibility. So do people remember reading the grant that we did and got sent out to everybody? So this is sort of the synopsis of the deliverables of all the pages of text that went with it.
Alan, this is Karen.
Yes. Yeah, Karen.
Michelle and David and I can give you some of our experience from working on the Warwick transition, that dealing with OPEB numbers and issues, that took a lot of our time, And I see that you've crossed it out. It is a big cost for each district. So I'm wondering why that was done.
Well, part of the reason that was done was a conversation with David, who pointed out that, it's as part of the operating budget and part of the auditing budget, that that is something that has to be planned for. You can't project that out forever. You can only do that as a year at a time. And I listened to what David said and was reminded that that's true. GASB 34 was a requirement that what are our liabilities? And we were supposed to capture them. And so the thought was, since this is part of that, maybe it's because, Karen, we fell behind so much, we lost track of how to make sure we were capturing all of the components of it. But Karen, if you've worked on that, I know David's worked on that and others, we're thinking that should be something we should be able to get as part of the budget process from both districts. And so that's why it was crossed out. I don't know, David, are you still with us? Because I can't see people.
Yeah, I can't make my camera work, but I'm here.
So is that kind of a good summary of our conversation, that it's going to be part of the auditing process, and that's a number we should be able to get if we're just looking for how that's built in the budget for, looking at assessments when we have to put a budget together with what the salaries would look like, and here's our OPEB obligation. I'm thinking we could grab that number from an audit.
Well, in terms of doing multi-year projections, that you don't really know the cost till the bill comes due, because it's a current year operating expense. But for planning purposes, you gotta make assumptions.
And this
So
is
that's,
Karen
yeah.
again. I'm just wondering what assumptions would be made about retiree health insurance split. It's different. And so that carries on into retirement as well.
Absolutely. And all the retirees in both districts would obviously be the obligation of the districts. So that would remain in place. I was originally thinking that this huge study would have to be done. We had that from both districts to project that out, and started changing my thinking when we have auditors that look out 1 year, because you do make that assumption. You have your bill, but you also know who your liabilities are, who you're going to be responsible for, but you don't know, I hate to be morbid, who's going to pass away, who's going to be new into the system, what that cost is. So it's really a hard number to nail down or to project out too far.
Alan?
Yes.
Is it true, and this kind of speaks to Karen, when you talk about teacher's salary, hold harmless, Gil Montague's salaries will not go down, and that pioneers would be brought up, obviously through agreement. Would that also be true for retirees?
That's my question.
So in other words, Karen and I are in opposite districts. I have wonderful retirement benefits from my district. And I know Karen's actually aren't as good. So Karen could keep what she had, or she could, if we want to call it an improvement, just for lack of any other word, could she opt into what we had? So that's a question. I think that Karen and I, both being retirees of the two separate districts, once again, are they in that hold harmless thing too, that your benefits would never go down? They would only be raised? Is that a true statement?
I would want to get more information, because I don't know enough about, I would think that so the retirement system, I see, you're talking about benefits for health insurance and those things, correct?
Health insurance and life insurance. Because the rest is simply based on your past salary
Right.
structure, which you can't go back and change, and the number of years you worked in the state and so forth.
For instance, the Gil Montague is in the GIC.
Yes, so are we.
Oh, so Pioneer's in the GIC too then. Okay.
That's correct, but your teacher contract language has a different split for how much you have to pay versus the district has to pay.
Yeah.
We're 75-25, and I think you're 90-10.
No, we're not at 90-10.
No,
Retirees, no. And I wish
No?
I knew exactly, but if it was 90-10, I'd be happy and I'd be going out to dinner more.
Would you take me with you?
There you go.
and we only have $1,000 worth of life insurance.
Yeah, so that's, like you said, all those little questions, I was just curious when Karen brought it up.
Yeah.
That there is no going down.
No,
I think that the OPEB study should not be crossed out. It maybe can be combined with development of hold harmless salary schedule and benefits, since it really,
right,
that's
right.
what it relates to.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a huge question,
Mhm.
and I was upset. I was not happy to see it crossed out.
Okay.
There, but I don't think we should try to solve the problems tonight.
No,
I think all we're trying to do is decide how this money ought to be used.
right.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't really crossed out. It's just, we were thinking it would be folded into the update financial operations assessment and revenue data. And be projecting out, through that work. But I mean, we could put it back in and possibly, I mean, the biggest allocation we have is the community outreach. That might, I just, I don't know what is an appropriate amount. 5,000 doesn't seem like much, so. But we're under, under constraint of 125 total, so.
How about this? How about this? How about we reduce the legal fee? Because if we get everything, our ducks in a row, then maybe we can move that to 10,000. Because they're reviewing what the towns are putting together, and the consultants are going to should have a pretty good handle. We already know through the work of the Heart Committee and the work that we've done since then, what requirements are in a regional agreement for, bringing it up to current standards, as Michelle was chaired that committee. So we have a regional agreement that in terms of the regulations and laws has been brought up to date. So maybe we could review, drop legal 5,000 and roll and either leave the OPED in or add the 5,000 to the what did you say? What was the line that you talked about?
I added it. That's okay. I just brought it back. Not on this. This is a PDF, but I did it on the original document. So, oh, actually, no, I can do it on this one too. But I've done it on the original document. So I brought OPED back and reduced legal by 5. So we're good.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that?
So now legal review is at 10,000.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
And Alan, having the students get together the way you described earlier certainly falls into the community
Yes.
outreach. So I don't see where any
Yes,
change needs to be made there.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Just the text. on how
Well,
we use it.
professional consultant isn't going to provide that. We're probably going to do it ourselves. You're going to do it.
Well, we'll be doing, oh yeah, I'll be doing that part. I just need it from the bus, although I did have a conversation with Mary a few days ago to just, bring her up to date on some of the things that have happened. And she said that she would love to, as part of her work, facilitate when the group got together, that she has a lot of experience in that. So there'd probably be a piece of her in that, doing that. I'm going to do the initial, and I end up I certainly could do that with both groups.
Well, I
I've
guess
done a
that's
lot
my
of stuff like-
question. All of these things say that the professional consultant is going to do them. Is that true?
Maybe, for the most part, maybe it should say professional consultant in planning board on these, because we do a lot of work through our meetings and with the consultant. And so I think that's a good point. It's not like they do everything. We've done it when we did the PowerPoint. There was a lot of meetings that we had with the consultant and pulled things together. A lot of going over the report of what we thought made sense and didn't make sense. So Ray, we should
but-
probably do that. But
but
slash,
if you put it there, won't people assume that we're being paid as well? Isn't the provider the one who's paid, the payee?
yeah, true. Maybe a notation at the bottom, say, the planning board will be working in, although it's a given.
Yeah.
With the consultant, will be intimately involved in the work of the consultant. Something of that. That's a good point.
And are you thinking that this is one consultant or several?
Oh, I think it'd be several. I think that the facilitation part for community and that I see different than the person that if we're looking at a regional agreement, I think there's I'm not, how do I say this? I think
Well, you answered
consultants
my
have
question.
different
It's more
expertise.
than one consultant.
Yes,
That's all I need to know.
yes,
Yeah, different skills.
Right.
yes, exactly.
I
Oh,
would
let me
caution,
talk a
I
little
would
bit-
caution that we should all be careful about talking to consultants prior to the RFP going out.
Mike
Jane,
has-
you ready?
Yeah, it wasn't a,
Mike has his hand up.
yeah, most of that conversation was about trying to refresh my thinking on the previous grants, because I was blending, since one followed the other, I was blending in my mind in what I was writing, the extension with the other work she did with teachers and staff after, and I needed to make sure I separated that out.
Okay.
So you said Mike, and then Jane, your hand's still up, so you might
I'm
want to
sorry.
comment again. Mike?
Yeah, well, I had a couple things. Number one, reading this over and also looking at the timeline, I found myself wondering how much of this is intended to help us reach a decision on whether to proceed. I mean, as I understand it, right now, we're trying to do presentations and get feedback from the communities about whether we're supposed to go forward.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if any of this money is intended to help us in that process. Some of this money, it seems like it, depending on how we see that process going, I can see yes or, it might or it might not. Some of the money, I mean, we've got 40, or let's see, $10,000 in there, or $40,000 for, actually 50,000 total for creating a new district agreement, which, as I see it, will only happen if we decide, if we get a firm go-ahead from the communities.
Right.
And so I was wondering, which of these things do we see happening before that happens?
So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and
So
as a suggestion, there was a question that came up at the meeting in Bernardston about the condition of the buildings. And I answered that one saying that what we have is the consultant's report. The consultants walked through the buildings with the facilities managers and told us they were basically in good shape, but they might need some work. And, thinking about that, it occurs to me that if, these days, if you're going to buy a house, you get a home inspection done. It seems to me that a lot of people might consider it pretty basic, since we're considering, joining these districts, that we ought to get something similar to a home inspection done of both the Pioneer facility and the Gilmonte facility. And I'd like to see somebody in there to have that happen.
All right, So
Can I-
Mike, let me just
And I
comment on
got one
that.
more thing,
Pioneer,
but go ahead, Alan.
oh yeah, I'll let you jump back in. Pioneer is doing a master plan looking at their facility, so we don't have to be paying for that. She's using some of the, I think ESSER money, but she's using some money to have a total review. The elementary school is obviously responsibility of the town. So she's using funds to create a master plan in terms of what kinds of expenses need to be put into the building to make sure, you know, everything's good. So,
Okay, what's the
so
timeline on that?
I don't remember. Karen, do you remember?
I don't think we were given a timeline.
I think they're preparing the RFP to go out from the
Mike,
budget meeting. Maybe Michelle knows.
Mike, Gil Montague did a facilities audit last year of pretty much all their buildings.
Of all their buildings?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, they didn't
That-
give it to us though, huh?
No, I don't think we requested it, but it did happen.
Yep.
So we can probably get that from Joanne.
Yeah, I had asked Joanne to pass along anything they got after, because we got some for the elementary schools in Montague.
Yeah, I thought they did it through the entire district. From what, that's my recollection.
So,
Well, maybe they did afterwards. We got the stuff from about the elementary schools a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
so Mike, to address your other issue, I was thinking that, you know, December, January, February, part of March, we will have rolled this out into the communities, gotten feedback, really been focused on that. And that by sometime in March, we would bring that to the planning board to take a vote on whether or not we are recommending moving forward or not. And if our recommendation obviously is to move forward, then we would move to start doing a regional agreement and putting that in. If we at that point say, no, we're not, then we give the money back and our work is done. But that's
Okay, I
just
think
me.
doesn't the schedule show looking for consultants in January and February?
Yeah, it doesn't
In
start
the
talking
timeline?
about, it does say February, March, the planning board and consultants begin to process to produce a new regional agreement. That says February, March. I'm thinking it's more in the March timeline that process gets started.
So
And
the
by then,
schedule
if,
is wrong.
well, I don't
Flexible.
see it. I'm looking
I
at
mean,
it.
if we're
I
not
don't
going to decide until the middle of March whether to proceed, they're not going to be starting in February forming a new regional agreement.
Right.
On my other question
Yeah.
is kind of a follow-up to what Christie said. I noticed that you're talking about hold harmless salary schedule and benefits. And that's another question that's come up a couple times, including at the Berniston meeting. The point being made that Pioneer teachers are not paid very well. And the expectation appears to be that if the districts combine, that will change and they will be paid better. And I guess I'm wondering, is the expectation that existing teachers will get raises? Not just be held harmless, but actually receive a bump up because they're not getting paid right now. And we haven't discussed that as a planning board, but I went back and looked at that Mars Abraham's report, and they estimated that if Pioneer staff were moved to Gil Montague pay schedule, the cost would be around $32,000. And that doesn't sound to me as if many people are getting very much of a raise. So I wonder if there's, what the expectation is, and if it's realistic. I mean, if it's true that we've got a lot of people out there, as I think we may, thinking that if this happens, Pioneer teachers will benefit by getting raises. It seems to me that's an expectation we ought to address, either by saying, yes, we agree, but then that might have an effect on what we see the possible savings, because that might end up costing money. And if we don't agree, then be clear, say, actually, it doesn't mean that. New people will be hired on a new schedule, but existing people will be on the existing schedule, but they're not gonna get a raise right out of the bat.
All right, Mike, so you're bringing up a whole bunch of issues that will be resolved in our conversations with a consultant when we talk about how we want them to approach this. So
Well,
this
is that a
is-
question that's gonna get resolved before we ask the towns for an opinion? Because telling the town, I mean, as you know, you were there were a number of questions about what the costs are gonna be. And one of them, well, it was based on, well, what's gonna happen with the teacher salaries? So are we just gonna say, we don't know? If you have to tell us to go ahead and then we'll find out.
Well, if you're asking me, I would say that that the consultants would take the salary schedules of both. They would look to see where people fell on them. And if Pioneer, wherever they would be moved closest to what they were making, but more than that, they would fall onto that schedule, and you begin to populate it from that perspective first. Then now everyone is held harmless. And Pioneer teachers all moved up. Then the question is, okay, in fairness.
Well, are you held harmless or are you
should there
moved
be-
up?
Pardon?
I mean, are you saying that Pioneer teachers will tend to get raises?
They will be on a
Yeah.
higher teacher schedule. Yes, that's
Yeah.
how they're
They
held
might not
harmless.
all get raises. It would depend where they fell in the schedule. The schedules are different. So when
Yeah.
you start moving
they're
from
not
one
gonna lose
schedule to
money.
the other,
Right.
it's gonna be different. But here's my comment about this. There's gonna be a teachers' union, and they're gonna negotiate their salary schedule. And you can
Yeah.
put whatever you want to in the district agreement for joining forces, but it's gonna be the negotiations of the unions with the new district that is gonna determine the salaries.
Yeah,
Right.
this is all subject to bargaining.
Yeah.
Well,
That's correct.
right, but I guess my point is that we've been going along saying, well, the budgets, we don't expect to, get rid of any teachers. We expect some staff adjustments in the central offices. We expect that to result in a little under $400,000 in savings, which we expect to be put back into programming. But if the expectation is that Pioneer teachers will see a significant change in how they're paid, it seems to be that the assumptions we've been going along with are unrealistic. And are we going to make an attempt to have them be more realistic? I mean, if the towns say, what do you expect the finances to be? Are we just going to say, well, we got to wait and see? I mean, that's certainly an answer. Or are we
I'll try
going
it
to try
again,
to?
Mike. No, I'll try it again, Mike. The comment about the collective bargaining is right on point. The people are being held harmless. There is a couple of different algorithms you can use in terms of putting people on salary schedule and creating a new salary schedule. And there may be a percent overall that's applied. That's only going to be put together as a methodology to get a number that might be really close to a ballpark of what will eventually be negotiated. But that number, as you know, it's going to have to be anchored in some kind of reality, but it's a speculatory number that will then be put into a new district budget when we're trying to determine what that budget might look like. So we can do the best we can with the information that we have and extrapolate from that. But we don't know what the GIC bills will be in the future. We can look at the history and see what happens. And we're just going to have to make the best assumptions. And we put out there with this new budget number that comes up, here are the assumptions that we made. Some may be high, some may be low, but given the information that we have, this is the, you know, the best that we have to offer.
And are we gonna be
I don't
offering
know what
that?
else to say.
Well, Alan, I hear what you're saying. When do you think we're gonna be offering that? We're gonna be doing it in January? We're gonna be doing it in February, or we're gonna be doing it after that?
I would hope that that piece would be done. When do we have it in our schedule? That would be done before March.
Alan,
Yes,
By
Jane?
whom?
and
By
I
a
think what
consultant.
we need first is the consolidate central office services and efficiencies. And we need the develop, hold harmless salary schedule and benefits. We need those two things from consultants early. Then we need the
Agreed.
transition plan. The community forums is going to be ongoing. And it shouldn't say community outreach and creating a new district agreement. It's community outreach and creating a new district. Drop the word agreement out of there.
Well,
You know,
the
once
activity
once
is.
we have some of these numbers from the consultants and some of their thinking, so that we don't keep going over the same stuff over and over, we can use those numbers to try to develop a budget.
Jane, I think there's confusion in the words I selected. Let me just clarify something. I may have confused things. The reason it says community outreach and creating a new regional agreement is because if we go down that path, the community outreach is meeting with the, you know, boards of selectmen and finance committee and getting into the particulars of things like the size of the school committee, how will they be elected, what form of assessments will you use? And so the outreach is to the financial people in the communities of what they think they can agree on language that's in the regional agreement. So that community outreach is specifically to get information and get people talking and get some kind of compromise or negotiations or agreement, consensus on what the language would be on how to do certain things. I see that Raina has to go, and I know she's got a lot on her plate, and she's so I thank her for participating.
Alan,
Does that clarify it a little bit, Jane, in terms of why those words went together? That's what the outreach was about, specifically on language that needed to be in the regional agreement and get buy-in from the towns of what they could agree on 5-year average or the standard state methodology. It's all those kinds of things.
Alan,
Yes.
just, I don't mean to, I've kind of just been hanging here. To Mike's point, and it doesn't pertain to the one you were just talking about, when you talk about development of hold harmless salary schedule and benefits, would it be helpful for you to add in there retirement? Because that certainly is a piece of, not the salary schedule, not really the benefits, because when you see all that, you think of employees now, but there would be a piece of retirement that might change. So I don't want anybody to say, hey, wait a second, that wasn't anywhere, you know, how come? So just to add that somewhere, because it is a responsibility of both districts.
Yeah, I think if we put down including benefits, including retirees.
There you go.
Salaries and benefits, including retirees would be.
So it's not a
would
surprise.
capture it. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Generate electricity. Runs the surface. So, the that I like any.
Are there components here that you feel we should be? I mean, we only have 125,000, but is there something big here that we're missing that that we didn't kind of capture in a big umbrella?
on the road in the various places. Why is it one thing? I don't know. Why is it not?
The only piece, and I think about how when we paid the faculty to participate at the end of the year, when you look at develop transition plan, employee and programs, if you're talking about getting faculties together after hours to formulate, curriculums and so forth. Once again, I'm not sure at what salaries, if you did the same that you had before. So I just tossed that out. If that's where it is that enough money to appropriately have everybody participating at a reasonable salary or stipend or whatever we want to call it? And you have their professional consultant, so that was just my question of, is that really professional consultant? Or I don't want the consultant telling the teachers how to transition. So that piece there is, for me, I'd leave it as professionals and not necessarily consultant. Or is there a consultant attached to setting those pathways up for them to meet? Once again, just because that
Professional-
certainly will be I'm
professional
not gonna call it
facilitators.
burden. There certainly will be a lot of excitement. I know they talked, at least at the middle school level, of talking together and creating a unique program for the middle school, and that's going to take time and money. I don't
Yeah,
want
we
to-
didn't get the 180. I mean, the transition plan, there's not enough in there, but we had to pare it back. It's also includes things like software programs. You save money on one end, whose software program? It has to do with how do you pass records on to as the employees come together. So it's there's so much more to it. There's what's going to be the method of tracking students, or their transcripts, and where will they reside, and so there's a lot to this.
So
So
you're talking nuts and bolts kind of that piece of the transition. And I guess then my question would be, in this whole plan, there doesn't seem to be any place for the staff to be participating in any of this. When you look at all the labelings of everything, now that I understand what you meant by develop transition plan, you're right, software, nuts and bolts, all that stuff. But once again, are we going to be asking faculty and staff to participate in something when we know they're already stressed and not getting any compensation for?
yeah, and so I guess I'm thinking, and I would, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now, I'm thinking that if we go forward and we're going to this next step in it, and we're going to be bringing it to the towns, we will be then writing a grant, a transition grant that would involve paying people
Okay.
to, now it's a whole different thing on curriculum development, on
Yep,
professional development.
Yep.
And that's when you'd start doing that piece of it.
Okay.
And we'd be looking for the state to support that effort now.
Yep.
I
Okay.
agree, Alan.
But-
And I would say that some of the facilitation could be used sooner than later to get us to the point where we're making our appeal to the town to give us some guidance as to whether they want us to move forward, so we can wrap some of that 15,000 into the next 2 or 3 months if we need to. It depends on how fast we can get the RFP out. But I would also suggest that it's late, it's 8:38 at this point. we have scheduled another meeting for next week. So we could continue this, this conversation next week. And, I mean, we're in a tough spot because we didn't get the 180. So we had, you know, Al and I did our best to kind of do a first pass at this and reducing some of the budget items. So, you know, we kind of expected it to be a longer conversation, but maybe we could hit that first thing next week. I'm throwing that out there. We could,
That's fair, and I think that's a good point.
we could
because
continue,
the
we
other,
could actually continue this agenda if we want to vote to
Yeah.
continue.
Mhm.
And that we do, that way
yeah,
we
why don't we do
have
that?
a new agenda. We'll just update it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And on that agenda, can you list the minutes that people will be doing with names next to them so that we have that on the, you know, the revised agenda? And that can happen, you know, after the Christmas break. This is not something that, you know, has to happen in the next week or two, so
Right.
that people have time to do it. So let's do that, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn in a second. The next steps, we can talk about that later. The legislative support, I think it was really good that, did people all get the letter from our state representatives? So that was helpful. I think they really appreciate the work that we're doing. And one of the things that those that weren't able to attend, we were recognized in terms of the time we're putting in, the efforts, the work, and that, you know, we have the support of the communities to continue diving in and looking and doing this. So, so to bring your calendars to the next meeting, and we can figure out after the break, the holiday break, and when we can start setting up some meetings. In the meantime, we'll get information after our meeting to Joanne to put RFPs out. That can happen in December, or early January. And we want to hit the ground running in January to be meeting. And I don't know if we need a consultant to go into and talk to the PTAs and
Maybe not.
answer
I'm
questions.
throwing it out there that might be a possibility, but just a point of order, do we have to vote to continue the agenda?
I think, yeah,
I think
Yes.
we do, but it's been so long since I've ever had to continue an agenda, so I
mhm.
remember.
Well, I would have a motion to recess the meeting
Yes.
there's a number of ways you can do it. You can recess the meeting and then, and it will be continued on December 13th. You post
Yes.
it again.
Yeah.
But it's a
I'll post it again.
continuation meeting.
Yeah.
So we're not adjourning, we're going to recess.
Okay,
So moved.
I second that.
Okay, 6:30, December 13th. And I thank everyone for this. We're very powerful with these diverse opinions and ideas. So thank you for that. And thank you for hanging
We still
in
have to
there.
vote. We still have
We
to
have
vote.
to vote.
Yes. Yeah. So Mike
Mike Naughton, aye.
and Jane, Karen,
Yes,
Deb,
Yep.
Greg,
Yes.
Steve,
Yeah.
Pat,
But,
Patricia, you're on mute, but I think you,
I did say yes.
okay, I don't read lips well. Lynn
yes.
and David, oh, David's gone. He must have just left. And Michelle,
Yes.
he probably doesn't like us recessing. Town meetings have done that, so we can do that. All right. I'll see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.